Hello everybody, Josue Ayala here, and if you have been following this channel at all, then you should know that it has been a very long time since we've done one of these. Sorry. Basically, the gist of it was that I didn't have a working computer for a while, and it's very hard to do videos when all of the tools that you need to make videos don't work. But the important thing is that we're back now, and I'm going to start us off with a game that I was very excited to try, Absolver. You can see it right there on the title. Let's press X to play. I'm using a DualShock 4 controller right now, so that's why you will see those buttons. I am very... Well, hold on, let me just say that I'm very excited to be back. I'm very excited to be showing this game off, and my original plan was to sort of start from the beginning and sort of do a first impressions video of it. But I got very excited, decided to try it out a bit early, and I ended up quote unquote beating the game. So what I'm gonna do instead is, instead of a first impressions, because I obviously can't do that anymore, I am going to do a new game. And I'm going to make a character. There you go. I'm going to make a character from scratch. We're going to choose a different fighting style, and basically I'm going to go over what I like about the game, what I dislike about the game. It's basically going to serve as sort of a review of everything as I see it so far, while also trying out a new, obviously a new move. So originally I did Windfall, which I liked very, very much. Right now, I think we're going to try... We're going to try the Forsaken combat style. So the name Absolver already exists, apparently. Fair enough. We're going to name her Greg. In honor of my, I actually forget the name of the game now, but it's in honor of a character, rest assured. Alright, so here we see the opening cutscene. I'm just gonna go ahead and let it play. And thus Absolver begins. Yeah, you can see, very pretty looking game, I think. It's definitely not a graphical powerhouse, but the visuals are nice. I really dig the art style. It's a look that quite a few indie games are going for, in a way. This sort of simplified geometry in a very stark and contrasty sort of game world, but it works well here. It serves the purpose of making everything sort of relatively easy to read, which is very nice for a fighting game. And then here we see a little bit of the a combat tutorial. Pretty simple stuff. You know, light attack, heavy attack. I tell a lie, there's not really light attacks or heavy attacks per se, because this game, despite being billed as kind of Dark Souls-y, I actually think is more of a combination of a For Honor's sort of more, let's say, nuanced fighting game style with like meter management and all that sort of stuff, with God Hand's sort of combo building. And you'll see what I mean in a little bit. But let's go ahead and take these guys. Oh, I don't really want to take these guys out. They're just kind of sitting there. So let's go ahead and leave them looking sad. And let's take this thing out. Yeah, look at that. So, as you can see, I have this meter. This is why people sort of compare it to Dark Souls, I think, is that you have this sort of stamina meter which goes out with as you attack, and you have a very dedicated one-on-one brawling system. You have your blocks and all that sort of stuff. But again, I think it's more better compared to For Honor, because while Dark Souls did have a very dedicated one-on-one combat system, it was more focused on sort of RPG sort of encounters with enemies that reacted differently, I suppose, to the actual player character, whereas this is more focused on one-on-one encounters with comparable threats, you know, player characters, that sort of thing. And so yeah, right now we're going through the different stances. So if I hold R2 and press the right stick, I can start in different poses, which will eventually sort of contribute to all the different attacks I can do. So like right here it's showing you, if I have myself positioned in this stance and I press triangle, I can do a move that breaks, well, it breaks guards in game, but it breaks that door in this situation. Hold L2 to block. So yeah. Sorry, I was trying to get used to how she plays. It's a little bit different. Who's this guy? He's just sort of sitting there. Okay. Let's just go ahead and break all of his pots. Oh, no, we're gonna punch him. That's fine. I didn't want to punch you, but you left me no choice. I just wanted to break all your pots, man. This is very bizarre. I didn't notice this the first time around. Let's go ahead and... I feel bad about that. I feel very bad about that, but that's how it is. I mean, I feel bad about it, but I'm gonna do it to this guy too. Alright. Interesting. Incidentally, I think this is the only place in the game, maybe I just missed all the other instances of it happening, but I think this is the only place in the game where you can actually punch doors to open them. It's very bizarre that it only happens once, and you're not really rewarded for doing it, so far as I could tell. You're just given two motionless guys to punch. Alright. So I'm going to try to be a little bit more clear of what's happening here. So right now I'm going to just try to beat these guys. So one of the things that you'll notice is down in the meter thing there are these little arrow things each time I attack. And if I hit the next attack in my sequence when that little meter is yellow, or when that little meter fills up to the arrows, I should say, then I get a uninterrupted attack, which makes it a lot more difficult for the enemy to dodge it, or, you know, just react to it in general. which is quite handy. Over there you can see a player character beating up an NPC. I'll just go ahead and watch that for a minute. That is one of the nice things about the sort of layout of this game, is that you can have this situation where it's a single player experience, but where it's interrupted by other players having their own single player experiences, and it all sort of makes the world feel a lot more alive, I think. Also, apologies if you can hear like a slight little beeping thing. I'm going to try to take it out in post, but if I can't, I want to acknowledge it now. I'm sorry. The fire alarm just won't stop. No matter what I've tried, it's been incessant, and I'm slightly dead inside because of it. But let's go ahead and punch this guy. Oof. That was brutal. I will say, I wasn't too sold on the lack of... I'm not too sold on the lack of ambiance, I should say, but I really, really like the sounds of, you know, punching people. It's very... That's an awful thing to take out of context, but it feels very satisfying to land a hit, especially since it's relatively difficult to do. And I'll get into that a little bit later as I sort of discuss my feelings about the game. Okay, so here's something relatively interesting. Apologies for that creaking as well. Even though this thing is a fighting game, and I very strongly support calling it a fighting game, it also has RPG elements. So here we can go ahead and meditate. And hey, we see this stats thing. Again, it seems Dark Soulsy, and I think most people sort of call it Dark Soulsy because they also lack the basic frame of reference for just action RPGs in general, but it's all incredibly superficial, I think, to Dark Souls, and it's more, I still think it's more akin to a fighting game and a brawler. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and upgrade, actually, we're not gonna upgrade our strength, we're gonna go ahead and upgrade our vitality, give us a little bit more health so that we can take more hits. Okay. And then I can't access anything else yet, so when we get there, I'll show you what's going on. We also have equipment, of course, as per, I don't know, RPG requirements, I suppose. So yeah, we could take off our pants if we want. Or we could, we can't take off our mask. That's a rather permanent thing. You can change your mask, but you gotta have one on at all times. That's just kind of how prospects roll, I suppose. So the parry direction must match the incoming attack direction. That is a bit complicated. Okay, I see. Let's go ahead and try that. Oh shit. There you go. Okay. So, oh my god, this chair is killing me right now. Okay, interesting. So with Windfall, I noticed that your evasion move, because that's basically what this is, an evasion move. You had 4 different angles at which to go about it. With this one, it's limited down to 2, but it's a little bit more complicated because you could conceivably, with Windfall, the more dodgy one, you could conceivably sort of dodge to the left and still miss most attacks. Whereas this one, you have to read where the attack is coming from a bit more. Alright, so here we have a boss fight. Ah shit, see, I went the wrong way. I went the wrong way again. It does feel very satisfying to get a parry, though. I'll be honest with you. Oh shit. Let's kick. That was relatively simple. We did good. We did very good. Kind of. That was actually not the greatest performance in the world. But, you know, we do what we can. Alright, let's go ahead and get out of here then. I forgot what I was gonna say, incidentally, so if I was gonna say something very profoundly important, then I apologize, you're just simply not gonna hear that. It's this guy with a very cool mask. I want it. So, I forgot that he had more to say. Oh, there you go. There's the name drop of the combat deck. Alright, so here's where we're introduced to what is arguably the most interesting mechanic in the game. This is also where the God Hand influence comes in for the three of you who have ever played God Hand. I'm being generous there, of course. Alright, so we open this up, and hey, here's our combat deck, which is basically going to be how our attacks... It's basically a setup of how our attacks sort of sequence into each other. And yeah, it's all good stuff. So it's actually quite a lot to take in. It's pretty disorienting. So right now I'm over my first attack in my upper right quadrant, I guess. And so there's a lot to take in here. The first thing that's worth noting is, of course, it does 40 damage. You can see that. But then also you notice that little diamond thing is pointing to the upper right. That means that once my attack finishes, I'm going to stay in the upper right quadrant, which is just so lovely and handy because that means that it can sequence into my second attack. And we can see that that's different for, you know, different things. So like for this one, my attack for the upper left quadrant, it starts in the upper left quadrant, but it's going to finish in the upper right, which means that if I was to do this normally, let's go ahead and go back. If I start in the upper left quadrant and I do an attack, I'm eventually going to go into my upper right attacks, because that's where this attack ends up. And as you progress, this thing gets absurd. Like, I know that my character, my main guy, his attacks just go around and around and around this thing. It can get pretty crazy, and that's, I think, the most appealing thing about this game. So like right here you can see that I can modify it with these attacks. So if I was to, for example, I go in here and I go ahead and do that, then I'm suddenly in this thing without conspicuously shifting. I can just do an attack, get right to it, do another attack, and admittedly here it sort of just alternates between those two, but if I'm here, suddenly I'm way up there and I can go that, and I can go this, that, shift into that, shift down, and it gets nuts, is basically my point. And I can make it even more nuts because all of this stuff is fully customizable. So long as I have an attack that starts in the upper right quadrant, I can pick any different move. I can swap out this power attack with this attack, and suddenly I can end up down here and shift up there and then go up here and then go back up there, and I have this weird combo now that I can continuously press, and it shifts between 3 different quadrants. So long as I have the stamina, of course. So yeah, it's a very satisfying system, trying to get different, just different moves that work together. And it's all incredibly, it's all fairly intuitive, It does its job. I can swap this thing out for, actually not much. I can swap this thing out for this, which means I could conceivably go there, there. I can make a combo that spans all of my quadrants and makes it incredibly difficult to figure out what I'm going to do next. And then you can do that for bare hands, and eventually you get weapons, and the rabbit hole goes deep, my friends. We'll up our will a bit, which will be another modifier that comes into things eventually that makes fights even more complicated and delightful for people who like these sort of slow-paced, plodding fighting games. Although this is an example of one of the things I very much dislike, and that is this game's insistence on pairing you up with multiple people in a combat system that really isn't satisfying to do that in. It was pretty good there because they were all fairly low health, but eventually it'll throw very, things with lots of health at you, and it's just sort of a chore to get through them. That's one of the things I dislike, and I don't think there's any good reason for it. Maybe it incentivizes co-op play, but it's not. I don't think it's worth it. I think that the bosses are plenty reason enough to sort of incentivize co-op without having ridiculous mobs. But such is a small quibble. And I'm willing to overlook it because I do genuinely quite enjoy this game. So here we see Greg traveling up the hills, walking to what is essentially the entirety of the game. This little zone. The guidance bridge. Rare Pepe Runlock entered. And Shenji. Okay, so that's another thing that's kind of a problem. As you enter zones, it kind of stutters as, players populate your space. Which is generally okay, except for if you're in a fight, and then it just sort of messes with your flow a bit. Not too big of an issue, but noticeable enough, I think. Alright, and here's another quote-unquote Dark Souls-y thing, is that we have these altars, which, as we interact with them, gives us some options. Not really anything too different from what we get just in the regular pause menu, but, you're given a safer space to do it. And despite saying that it's not very Dark Souls-y, I realize that I keep making the comparisons, but bear in mind that it's all very superficially similar, I don't think it has any of the hallmarks of a true Souls game. It's much more a fighter that takes place in a bizarre hub. So I don't think it's insulting to say that it's not Dark Souls-y. I think that that's just what it is. It's its own entity, It does its own thing, and I think that it does it moderately successfully. I like it. I like this game. I think that there's a lot that's kind of missing from it. It feels sort of like a shell, and again, this is annoying. But all in all, it's a very fun experience. That's a thing though. Walking is basically worthless. It's more of a repositioning tool than anything else. So there we saw a player character basically totally ignore me, as is his prerogative. Ah shit. I'm getting the timing for the parrying all kinds of messed up. this lag isn't helping. That's very much not helping. Oh yeah, there's another thing. I have these little tension shards, which are those things floating back there, which I can use to activate different power-ups, like my heal ability, yay, which powers up, well, I was gonna say which powers up, okay, I'm hitting, that's ridiculous. Did you see that? That shouldn't be happening. Jesus. Okay, so that was some pretty significant lag right there. That wasn't good at all. What I was going to say was my healing strengthens as I punch people, but stops completely if I get hit myself. So that's a thing to deal with. All right, let's show him what for. Because I refuse to let him live. Shit. Nope. So here we see an instance of unconventional multiplayer. I don't know if this guy wants to kill me or, you know what, let's just go ahead and fight him. So he was helping me before, now we're in a battle, because that's just how we settle things around here. Again, very much not helped by the lag, but he seems to be. I'm very upset because this is a very terrible sort of, this is a very terrible, oh shit. So this guy's way higher level than me, it should be noted. And he also, presumably, yeah. Oh, bastard, didn't even respond, didn't even revive me. Yeah, I feel like this is a very terrible representation of a game that I actually quite like. Thank you. The lag isn't good right now, which is really quite tragic, but that's okay. Let's try out an instance of something that I feel is going to be not quite so horrible in terms of lag, and I'm going to get roundly whipped into shape, but that's okay. Go ahead and run back. I might cut this, depending on how long it takes for me to get back to that altar. There it is. Okay, we're fine. So we'll go ahead and enter here and do a combat trial. This is basically where the game... This is where the game lives, more or less. I think it has matchmaking, so since I'm such a low level, it might take a while. I don't think anybody really tries to do this until, you know, they get a respectable amount of time in, and I don't blame them. One of the problems that I have is that, you know, while you can certainly get by with just your basic skill and understanding of the game, there is a lot of it that just boils down to who has the highest numbers. You know, if you're a higher level, you're gonna have more tension shards, which means that you have more time to sort of save yourself, and yeah, that's just kind of a thing. Couple that with the fact that I'm not at all familiar with this fighting style, and this is probably gonna be a bloodbath, but that's okay. It's all part of the learning process. sort of bowed the wrong way, but he gets the general sentiment. Alright, let's go ahead and do this. Shit. My timing is all wrong. Unconventional game means sort of unconventional mechanics. We have a system where you're basically sort of respawned after 3 seconds and they don't get their full health back. They just get a portion of it back, depending on, you know, how much they were left with. And it works relatively well. Instead of a best of 3 match, you have or instead of a best of 2 match, I should say, you have a best of 3. Which is very kind of For Honors-y. And works with this sort of mechanic, or this sort of game system where half of the challenge is just sort of figuring out what your opponent is going to throw at you, what they have. Yeah, so as I predicted, we're getting munched. Alright. He's not having it. Okay. Some sort of humor there. Let's go ahead and... just sort of keep it. I feel like he's focused. Oh shit. Let's reposition. Alright, so that was pretty good. Oh yeah, we can also do feints, which sort of... shit! Ideally, trick the opponent into making a move that they wouldn't want to do, which is nice. We might not make this one. Alright. Shit! Oh, we were so close. We were very close. Alright, well, you know. Yeah, he wasn't having it. Alright, we'll go ahead and exit. But that's sort of a look at Absolver's early game. Just sort of getting you through the, just sort of getting you through the mechanics. This whole place is basically a training ground to get you used to the system, because it is a very, despite not having anything explicitly new, it is very unconventional, especially for a game in its genre. So, all very interesting stuff. We're going to go ahead and exit out, and I'm going to load up my character who I've actually invested a little bit of time into. And here we are. Sorry about that. I realized that I was sort of in an end game place, and I didn't really want to give that away in case anybody wanted to go out and try this game. And I don't know, people are kind of weird about their spoilers, so I tried to be considerate about it. Oh, that guy has a cool mask. Anyways, this is the character who I've actually invested a little bit of time into, although it's worth noting, not too much. I don't know why he has that glow effect, he doesn't normally, but yeah, he's pretty cool. I like him. He's a little bit of a hodgepodge design-wise, but aren't we all? Let's go ahead and try a combat trial with him. Oh yeah, that's another cool thing. I haven't unlocked it yet, and maybe once I do, I'll get into it a little bit more, but you can craft schools and sort of teach your combat style to other people, which is pretty neat. You can see, not only do I have more, well, I have more decks to build combos in, but the combo that I do have sort of has a lot more going on. It's very, it's a lot more fleshed out, I guess you could say. Even so, I have this move which I haven't committed to anything because I don't want to. But yeah, so it can get fairly intense, the stuff that you can do with this combat system. It's all kind of a delightful mess. I very much like it. We're gonna go ahead and go into a combat trial with this guy. Yeah. You can see that I can unlock my fighting school creation and basically most of the meter, so that's fun. I'm nowhere near that level yet. But there's a lot that I like about this guy. You know, he's got a weird little floaty eye mask and his feather shawl, which I love. That's probably my favorite thing of his whole ensemble. Sad boy. I see that sad boy has similar tastes. There's like a little hole in the middle. Alright, let's get this done. That's something that's worth pointing out. Oh shit, forgot how to play for a second. That's something that's worth pointing out, is that some of your attacks have modifiers. So if I was to press this, that also dodges me to the left, which is nice. And that sort of prevents me from upcoming attack, or from high attacks. Same with that one. So there's a lot to play with, like I said. Ah, shit. So one of the things that I dislike about this game, and there are a few things, is that there isn't really a way to break someone out of a block aside from just keep on hitting them. That was good. You have a couple of attacks that are specifically designed to break blocks, but not only do they usually take a bit of wind up, they're also don't break blocks so much as just reduce the stamina meter down significantly. Which works, don't get me wrong, but I would have liked to have a move that doesn't hurt them, but sort of staggers them, you know? To sort of de-emphasize really defensive gameplay. But as it stands, I think it works. See, that was the case of that. Oh shit. I'm actually really sad about that. Oh. Huh. Well, there you go. I guess he wasn't having it. Fair enough. I don't know how long I've been doing this, but let's try another round and then we'll go ahead and call it. Yeah? Does that sound good to you guys? I don't know if it does, but you don't really have a say in the matter. I think it sounds good. You guys wouldn't know this, but it is very hot in here because I'm trying my best to reduce noisemakers, which is a fruitless measure at this moment. I know, but I'm doing what I can. Alright. Let's do this. I always like to open up with a sweep, with a sweeping attack like that, because most people typically don't expect it. They'll just do a regular punch, and that was not good. Did you see that lag? Yeah, that's very not good. Oh yeah, that's another thing that I should probably talk about. Oh shit. So that guy has decided to heal up. I typically like to avoid doing that during fights just because it feels a little bit cheap. I mean, it's a mechanic in the game, it's there to be used, of course, but I don't know. Oh my god. I don't know what's hitting. Alright, well I unlocked spinning wide hook. As you block or evade attacks, you slowly learn them, and if you defeat the enemy, once the gauge is full, you'll learn that move, and that's sort of how you expand your deck. Which is super cool. It incentivizes you to fight every enemy. You know, in the case that they have something new, and again, it encourages that sort of defensive play, which is why I assume they don't have any throws. So it makes sense, I just don't like it all completely, even though I understand the reasons for its existence. It's one of those things. This lag has no reason for existing. It's like mosquitoes. I don't want it in my fighting game, thanks. Oh shit. That was cool. Ah shit. Alright, let's get this done. So I'm not going to be able to do too much fancy dodging because I have no idea when my attacks are happening, which is a little bit annoying. I was able to do that though. Okay. That was pretty well done. If I build up enough tension, I'm gonna show off my sword because I don't want to, but this is a video, so... Shit. Oh god, it's hard to tell what's happening. You bastard. again, I'm super... Oh my god. I'm super sad about this because this doesn't usually... Well, in my case, it doesn't usually happen, and it's kind of ruining, you know, a good representation of a game that I like, again, like I said. Oh my god. That's annoying. Alright. Fudge! Alright, fine. Oh, you... That's nonsense. Yeah, that was hard to read. Oh well, we did enough to unlock the bow hunter gloves, so that's something. I'm pretty sure he had just as bad of an experience. Alright, well, let's go ahead and exit out then. Let's go ahead and look at our equipment. I like to keep it light, so. Oh, I am fast. Good lord. Actually, that's bizarre. My equipment is just showing nothing at all. That's very, very bizarre. Okay, well, apparently this game just doesn't want to be shown in a good light, but yeah, that's very strange. Trust me when I say that it is quite good, and I like it a lot, but yeah, that is profoundly disappointing, that this is the video that I have to show it with. Like I said, maybe I'll do another video. I mean, it is an early launch, and games these days launching is kind of a clusterfuck anyways, so we'll revisit it, but for now, that's Absolver. I don't know why I did that. That's probably just confusing for you guys. That's Absolver anyways. I'm gonna go ahead and call it now. I hope you guys liked it. It's good to be back. I'm sorry if this was a pain to get through. I promise I will get better. Goodbye.